I went from making $92,000 to $135,000 in my first 4 years of working as an electrical engineer. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did it. I want to break down the specific things I did, the mindset shifts that helped me average roughly an 11% raise per year, the things I could have done differently to position that number even higher, and the actions that moved the needle for me financially. I also want this channel to be a place for transparent conversations around personal finance. And for some reason, salary discussions have almost become taboo over the last couple of decades. People will openly talk about almost anything on the internet, but when it comes to salary and income, everyone suddenly gets quiet. I want to help break down that barrier because I think there's a lot we can learn from each other when people are willing to be honest and share the numbers. So leave a comment down below with how much your salary or hourly pay has increased in the last few years, or even let me know in the comments if it hasn't increased at all. I think there's a lot of employers out there that will screw their employees by not giving them raises to keep up with the cost of living, and I think it's becoming a big problem. I'm genuinely curious to hear about your situations, and I'd love to provide insight where I can. Let's get into it. The first thing that changed for me was realizing that your income is not fixed, and it's definitely not something that's just automatically goes up because you show up to work and work hard every day. The weird thing about being salaried is no matter how productive or how hard you work in any given 2 week stretch, your paycheck is going to remain the same. No matter how little effort you put in for a 2 week stretch, your paycheck's going to be the same. This is how it works. I would recommend actually working hard though, because that's what's going to get you ahead in the long term. But this has to be a balance of not getting burnt out. When I first started my engineering career at a salary of $92,000 a year, I kind of had the mindset that if I just kept my head down, I worked hard, I did what I was told, the raises would naturally come over time. And to be fair, there is some truth to that. The hard work does matter. But I eventually realized that there are a lot of hardworking people out there who stay financially stuck because they never take things into their own hands, if that kind of makes sense to y'all. Nobody's going to be looking out for your best interest other than yourself, no matter how good your boss is. 99% of the time, you got to go get it for yourself. You got to go eat like you're James Harden playing 2018 on the Houston Rockets. Hopefully, y'all watching are old enough to remember how dominant 2018 James Harden was. Companies don't usually sit around asking themselves, how can we increase this employee's income? You got to be on the offensive when it comes to this. It's a combination of working hard and being upfront with where you want your career to go and being open about what you can improve to take the next step. Showing ownership like that helped me get my first promotion at my job. And here's exactly what I did. I got into working at an oil refinery as a project manager, which basically means I'm leading teams from completely different engineering and operational backgrounds to accomplish an objective. And pretty quickly after stepping into this role, I realized something that changed my mindset. I saw that this job was forcing me to develop leadership skills at a much faster pace than I expected. And leadership was always something I wanted to get better at and eventually do in my career. I've always had goals of leading people and taking on more responsibility, so I started looking at my position as more than just a job. I looked at it as essentially the leadership training that I needed to get where I want to be later in my career. So, what did I do in my first year? I worked hard, obviously, but a lot of people work hard. So, I had to stand out and differentiate myself. I started intentionally doing things that I thought would accelerate my growth in the company. I asked to be challenged instead of just going with emotions and being content where I was at. I volunteered for projects that were more difficult. I had more moving pieces. There were times where I felt like I was slightly over my head, but I was not afraid of failing or looking inexperienced. I also spent a lot of time developing relationships because project management is really a people job disguised as an engineering job. You can be technically strong, but if you can't communicate with people, if you can't build trust, you can't get different groups to move in the same direction, you're going to hit a wall pretty quickly when you're managing projects. So I focused heavily on learning from experienced people around me and building meaningful relationships instead of just showing up and going through the motions. Come performance review time that first year, those things paid off. I got strong ratings and crossed over the six-figure mark after my first year, landing at about $105,000 salary. And I'm speaking salary wise here because with the other company benefits and the bonus that I get, I was over the six-figure mark, but the salary six-figure mark was really what I was shooting for. So that was pretty much a very exciting moment because growing up, six figures felt like this huge milestone and it was officially here for me. The bigger lesson I learned here was understanding what created that result for me in the first year and seeing if I could repeat it. Then year two rolled around and I basically did the same thing, except now I had a year of experience under my belt. I was still absolutely in the learning mode, and honestly, I still am today, but I started becoming more confident. I understood my role better, I was becoming more comfortable making decisions, and I continued to do that extra mile at work. I put even more focus into developing my people skills because I knew leadership wasn't just about managing projects. It was about learning how to work with people. I knew these skills would eventually carry over into where I ultimately wanted to go professionally. And that year, I got another strong performance review and another solid raise, this time around 10%, which pushed me to a salary of $115,000. Then I saw a promotion opportunity open up at another refinery across the country while staying within the same company. And this is another lesson I want people to pay attention to because a lot of income growth can come from being willing to pursue opportunities when they knock at your door. And there can be a lot of moving parts when it comes to job relocation, and it is certainly not a black and white solution. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and moving to a location that I always wanted to go to anyway. So when it came time for the interview, the experience I had gained from my projects in my first 2 years gave me the confidence heading into that interview process. I prepared well, I landed the job, and that promotion to move also pushed me to a salary of $120,000. This was awesome because it opened up the possibility and awareness for me that if I wanted to move, I can also move and get salary bumps. I'm not going to be wanting to move forever, but now I had proof of concept that moving will get you paid more depending on the situation. Then during my third year, I didn't get quite as strong as performance reviews in my first couple of years, and it's not like I slacked off or started to coast. Sometimes you're just going to get hit with those average reviews working for a big company because you're competing with hundreds of other strong performing employees, and not every year is going to be your year. Career growth is rarely just a straight line. I thought it was for my first 2 years, but then I had a hard realization my third year. You're going to have stronger years and you're going to have more average years. You're going to have years where you feel like you're crushing it and others where you feel like you're getting wrecked. My third year, I still received about a 4% raise and got up to $127,000 in salary. And then this year, I climbed to $135,000 in salary with stronger reviews than the previous year, and that's where I sit today. Throughout all of it, though, one thing stayed consistent, and this is one of the messages I'm trying to get across in this video. I always tried to stay on the offensive when it came to career progression and my salary increases. I wasn't sitting back waiting for someone to hand me opportunities. I kept trying to take on more complex projects. I kept developing relationships. And I want to emphasize how important networking and relationships are. They are so important. I also kept improving my leadership skills. And I kept asking myself one question: what does management value at the company I'm at? Because every industry rewards different things. There might be some industries that value technical expertise over people skills. Some industries will value the ability that you can sell. Some would value leadership. Some might value education credentials. One of your objectives, if you're watching this year, should be to figure out what your company values the most and intentionally work on developing those skill sets. Now, I do want to say something important here as I pivot to the back half of this video, because not every salary situation can be simply fixed by working harder or improving your skills. Sometimes the issue is not you at all, it's the environment you're in and the company that you're with. There are absolutely jobs and companies where no matter how much extra effort you put in, your salary progression is basically capped from the start. One of the biggest red flags I would watch for is if you consistently take on more responsibility, but your compensation barely changes. If you're handling larger projects, solving bigger problems, training people, if you're becoming more valuable to the company, and your raises continue to be 2 to 3% every year, which is barely keeping up with inflation, and if there's no real path forward for you, then eventually you have to ask yourself the tough questions. Am I actually growing at this job right now, or am I trapped? Inflation alone can eat up a large chunk of those small raises every year, and in some cases, they practically wash them away. And after a few years, you can just find yourself significantly underpaid compared to the market. One thing is for certain that wages have not nearly kept up with the cost of living increases, so I don't want y'all wasting time at a job that is not going to compensate you for what you're putting in. And later in this video, I'm going to give you some practical tips for how to create an exit strategy if you do feel like you're in this situation. Another major red flag is when leadership talks vaguely about future opportunities for you, but nothing ever materializes. Almost everyone has heard of some version of, just keep doing what you're doing, bro, your time's going to come. And that might have been true for the boomers back in the day, but if years go by and there are no promotions, there are no expanded opportunities for you, and there are no clear roadmap, that rhetoric from management can become a problem. Career growth should not feel like a mystery game where you're hoping someone notices your effort one day. There should be some level of transparency around what advancement in the company actually looks like. I also think people should pay attention to whether top performers in their company are leaving, If you consistently see talented, motivated, those high performing people walking out the door, pay attention to that. Sometimes those people know things that newer employees don't see yet. That should tell you something. Now, if you find yourself in any of these situations, I don't think the answer is to emotionally quit your job tomorrow or rage quit and apply to 50 positions at midnight after one bad day of work. I think you need to create an exit strategy. Creating an exit strategy starts long before you actually leave. You got to keep performing well where you're at, continue building those skills, continue documenting your accomplishments and the projects that you've worked on. I want you to update your resume before you need it and keep your interview skills sharp. If you do search for a new position, I want you searching out of a place of abundancy rather than panic. Some of the biggest salary jumps people ever experience doesn't come from annual raises at all. They come from switching jobs. Switching jobs can be a slow process that happens over months. It looks like updating your resume after work or during work if you're ballsy. It also takes time keeping an eye out for the opportunities online. It takes a lot of time to actually apply for the job too, having to create new profiles for every single company that you apply for. It can be a grind, that's for sure. So even if you love your job, understanding your options and occasionally checking your market value is just a smart move, in my opinion. And it can hopefully bring you some peace of mind if you are feeling stuck in a job that you may not like. Your income trajectory is probably more in your control than you think it is. I wasn't nearly the smartest person in the room because I finished college with like a 3.4 GPA. I didn't have some perfect career roadmap, and I definitely made mistakes along the way. What set me up for success and gave me the ability to continue to increase my income was that I never stopped learning. I really put an emphasis on developing my people skills, and I built meaningful relationships that helped eventually land my new job that I'm at today. And I always tried to be the best in my department. So that's really all I have for this one. Let me know down in the comments again how your salary has progressed over the years and what career field you're in, because I really enjoy hearing everyone's stories. Let me know if you're feeling stuck and I can hopefully provide some advice on your situation. If you're trying to build wealth, improve your finances, and work towards financial freedom together, make sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.